Hello everyone and welcome. I am the Faustian Man, and today I have a very special thing to stream. This is a game that came, boy, when did this come? This came out in like 1991, 1992. It was one of the first FMV games I played because it came with the Sega Dreamcast, not Dreamcast, Sega CD that my parents had got for me for Christmas, which was sold out and very hard to find. And I was fortunate enough to get one. I'm gonna prepare you for something right now. I'm gonna prepare you for this music I've been listening to. This is very hard to hear, get through. So here it is. Let me send out a Twitter alert. Alright, so I've been listening to this loop and loop and loop, as you can see, for a very long time, and it is as harsh as it seems. So let's go without further ado and do this.
London is not a beautiful city. Under the soot that covers its buildings is a teeming mass of 4 million souls trying to survive, mostly off of each other. You see it in the paper every day. Thankfully, we have the London Times to keep us informed of all these troubling activities with an unbiased eye and razor-sharp accuracy. We find this publication to be of invaluable assistance in our investigations,
And the
I'm sure you will
and
as
the
well.
pimps. It's a early Rorschach.
Among the forces of evil which run rampant in this city, there are also, thankfully, two groups of individuals who will aid us in our cause. As we do, they attempt to right wrongs and restore harmony and civility to the streets of London.
Thank God for that.
The first of these groups is a ragtag association of young ruffians. I call them the Baker Street Irregulars. Don't let them fool you. They may be scruffy and ill-bred, but they are on the right side of the law. They can go everywhere, see everything, and overhear everyone. They are my eyes and ears in the streets of London, unquestionably a tremendous asset in our work. They will help us in our investigations if they can. The other group is a far more civilized collection of gentlemen and institutions. I call them the Baker Street Regulars. They, too, will be extremely useful in our work.
Just want to see how I sound.
At the start of any investigation, do keep in mind that it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Unwittingly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. The people and places to whom I will now introduce you will help us to collect the facts. May we use them wisely. Come. The game's afoot.
The game is afoot! Oh, please don't go back to that. Okay, I'm gonna replay it just to get my sound.
London is not a beautiful city. Under the soot that covers its buildings is a teeming mass of 4 million souls trying to survive. City. Mostly off of each other. Under the soot that covers its You see it in the paper every day. Thankfully, we have the London Times to keep us informed of all these troubling activities with an unbiased eye and razor-sharp accuracy. We find this publication to be of invaluable assistance in our investigations.
I guess I sound
and I'm sure you will as well. Among the forces of evil which run rampant in this city, there are also, thankfully...
Thank you, Holmes. Ellis?
Mr. Henry Ellis is the foreign news editor for the London Times. He is a great reservoir of information of what's happening on the continent. He also has an interest in crime news. Ellis is always happy to help when he can, but you must be careful of what you tell him, or you might find what you've confided to him in the next day's Times.
I remember this game came with a notepad. A quick aside is that when I was growing up, you know how you'd buy toys, like Star Wars toys, like a TIE fighter, and they'd come with stickers, right? They'd come with like stickers of like battle damage. My cousin, I remember, had used those stickers and placed them on his TIE fighter. And then when I got mine, I looked at it and I was like, I don't want like a wrecked TIE fighter. Why would I want that? So I never touched the stickers and I didn't want to ruin them. So I put the stickers aside in the box. This game came with a notepad and a little pencil. It was one of those games. And I didn't want to ruin it. So I never used the notepad, and I tried to play without the notepad. Fucking impossible to play without a notepad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to... I don't know if I still need a notepad. I'm going to grab a piece of pen and paper. I'll be right back. Alright, I went upstairs. I couldn't find one. I found in one of my drawers a piece of paper. This will be our notepad if I need to take notes.
This is a records office housing documents pertaining to births, marriages, deaths, and last wills and testaments.
Okay, that's Somerset House.
Quentin Hogg is a crime reporter for the Police Gazette. He is an ex-police inspector who found the environment of Scotland Yard less than stimulating. He has a strong deductive mind and is a very good resource.
I'm curious as to like what my I'm only at like 36 KB. What does that even look like? I thought it was always higher. Alright, what does this look like? Okay, it looks fine. What does this look like? I don't know why I thought it was always higher before. Finding a sweet spot on this audio is going to be a bit of a
Porky
game.
is not a pillar of society, I dare say, but he is a man who has learned from his mistakes and is trying to start a new life. Although he is no longer in prison, he is still behind bars, or shall I say, a bar.
Jolly good one, Holmes.
Yes, Watson. Well, the bar in question is the Raven and Rat Inn. Porky is the proprietor. He has been of great help to us in the past, and I expect he will continue to be in the future. Ah, Scotland Yard. If the Yard knew how to examine evidence with any skill, there would be no need for our services. Inspector Lestrade is the pick of a bad lot. But it is true they may be a source of valuable information. After all, the professional police have methods for gathering facts that are not open to us. Edward Hall is a young barrister whom you will find on most days at the Old Bailey. He's a cut above the other unimaginative members of his profession.
Holmes, don't you think you should explain to them the difference between a barrister and a solicitor?
Yes, of course, Watson. A solicitor handles the routine legal business of our society. If you do not have to go before a court, you will have no need for a barrister. If you must go before a court, then your solicitor would engage the services of a barrister.
Quite right, quite right.
Now here is a person who usually gets in the last word. Langdale Pike is a human reference work on social scandal, especially on the London scene. He contributes bits of gossip to the garbage papers that cater to an inquisitive public. If I can't find something in my own files, I go and examine the overflowing shelves of the great London Library. It is a wealth of information. This gentleman is the head chemist at Scotland Yard Criminology Laboratory. It is rumored that Murray lives in the lab. He is eternally bent over one of his tables trying to extract the history of a crime from the physical evidence he's been given. Sir Jasper is the chief medical examiner for St. Bartholomew's Hospital. He is London's greatest forensic pathologist. You can depend on him for all the technical details that can be obtained from any corpse whose cause of death is in question.
Ah, so he is the...
Sir Jasper is the chief medical examiner.
Okay.
I think you'll find these tools to be positively
Oh, no,
invaluable
not the
in
violin.
an endeavor to help Holmes solve these cases.
What? The newspaper should be your first stop when starting a case. Simply choose one of the newspapers and look for relevant names and locations and articles. You can scroll up and down. The directory contains names and places to help you in your sleuthing. Wow, this music. And there's no way to turn it off. When you hear or read a curious name, select the appropriate tab and look it up. The directory tools. Let's get further. Once you select a name or a location, select one of the three icons below. You can send Holmes to Watson to the destination. Send the Baker Street irregulars instead of, or search Holmes files for information. You can use your notebook in two ways. Select Clue History tab to reveal information on what you have seen and done. Select Clue Hints tab to request a hint from Dr. Watson himself. Sending the detectives to a location will play a video scene. Some scenes are pertinent to the case, and others may lead to dead ends or red herrings. Touch the video playback controls enable in the settings menu. I didn't see a settings menu. If you believe you have enough information, the loot, the warrant, and the crook, select the gavel to bring the case before a judge. He will determine if you're a master sleuth. Certain actions in the game will cost you clue points. Your goal is to solve the mystery in as few points as possible. You can't get out of this? Where the hell is the settings? Settings. Fucking A! Awesome, let's go! Oh, here they are. Do I want a full screen? Oh. No, I don't. That's a hell of a place to put the settings, right? With a lantern lit sitting room at 221B Baker Street, Sherlock Holmes slowly takes a pull from his pipe, while Dr. Watson, reclining after a bit of tea, peruses a discarded copy of the London Times.
What rubbish! What balderdares!
You must have read something terribly disturbing, Watson, for you to be so overwrought this early in the morning.
Indeed, Holmes. It's irresponsible of the Times to play upon people's superstitions.
Ah, you must be referring to the affair of the mummy's curse.
Has the entire city in an uproar. 3 men dead, and they expect us to believe that a 4,000-year-old mummy was the murderer. I'm surprised you haven't taken some interest in this case, Holmes.
To the contrary, my dear Watson. I have made some inquiries. Because I dare say I do believe this murderer is a much younger chap.
Nice setup. Sweet, I get it now. Okay. Those are my points. So I played this game in 1992 and I beat it. I'd take notes though. Oh, Jesus. Births, letters, the mummy murders. To the editor of the Times, Sir, with regard to the recent mummy murderers, I would like to suggest that we abandon our attempts to disturb the ancients in their graves or otherwise. This applies to not only such excavations that have become so common in Egypt, Morocco, and other foreign lands, but also to touch such projects in our own British Isles. If hypothesis of such men as James Ferguson, who believes that Stonehenge is an ancient sepulchral, monument for the Saxon Druids, are true, we should leave these burial grounds undisturbed. Surely if the murders are a work of some present-day mortal human, the police will discover his identity and bring him to justice. I do sincerely believe, however, we should not meddle in the magic and sorcery of which we know naught. For we have not the means to control the forces thus unleashed. Wow, this is a lot of reading. Oh, there's gonna be more FMV. I think there was this much reading in the other one. Can you imagine reading on this on Genesis in 1992? Mummy strikes again. The body of James Windibank. So that's kind of important. Let's put down James Windibank. I should have like a notepad open, shouldn't I? Like with clues. Wouldn't that be better? I think that would be better. Let me think. Let me load OpenOffice. I don't think this is going to look as sexy as I thought it was going to. That's not what I want. Not looking as sexy as I thought it was gonna. Alright, so let's try this. We'll have to just eke it out like this for now. James Windibank was the person discovers. Alright, so. Let's do it like. What should I do? Like this? Is this better? Because I'm facing the camera, I guess. James. Windibank. Victim. We'll go to his home, I guess. He was preparing for the British Museum's exhibit of newly discovered artifacts from the tomb of Cuthbert's mummy. The archaeologist was found strangled. Around his neck were linen bandages. Interesting. The type used by ancient Egyptians in wrapping mummies. Windibank's is the third murder to be associated with the mummy in the past 6 weeks. He's the third victim. The archaeologist had accompanied the London University-sponsored expedition to Egypt. The project has been cursed with ill luck since the first discovery of the tomb several months ago. Obviously, this is based on the curse of Tutankhamun. Its organizer, Dr. Ebenezer Turnbill, that's another name. You don't hear that name too much anymore, do you? Ebenezer was murdered in the actual tomb itself, so forget that name. In early March, another archaeologist, Andrew Weatherby, met a similar fate on board the ship returning from England just last week. The Jardine ship of the Eastern Empress was the scene of the mysterious death. The shipboard investigation was handled by Captain Herman Ramsey, the first officer. Okay, so let's do Captain Herman Ramsey and Luther Tenney. They found the bodies. Sir, as a man of science and medicine, I must protest these innuendos of murderous mummies. The ancient Egyptians had progressed, but they certainly had not found the secret to everlasting life in the material world. Even had they, we cannot bring home the murder of 2 men to a 4,000-year-old mummy. I can only repeat that this is utter nonsense and balderdash. Oh, Watson. Watson, I saw you wrote in. This is like trolling or like message boards back in the day, or Reddit, I guess. Foreign arrivals. Fatal accident. Okay. Wait a minute. Like, what are these? The 12th? How many? How long is this? Oh, it goes back. So that's the most recent. One of the 4 papers. How do I know which one to read? This is about the Turnbull guy. Something in Philadelphia. I think it brings you to these every time. And you have to pick the relevant paper. I think that's it. A lot of stuff going on, and I forgot who did it, which is the best part of replaying this. All right. Okay, that's like the old Notebook. I remember that. I don't remember the hints though. I remember the directory is like where to get everything. Let's see if we can find Windaby. Weathersby Shelley. Who was that? Is that name on there? Turnbull was a victim. Ramsey. There. Captain H. Ramsey. Start with him. After pursuing the Times, Holmes is convinced Mr. Ramsey has information valuable to the case. Oh no, this music.
We had just come through a rather grueling storm, so I sent my first officer, Luther Tenney, down into the hold to check on the condition of the cargo. He reported back post-haste that Mr. Weatherby was lying dead among the Egyptian artifacts we were transporting. I turned over the helm to Tenney and went below to have a look for myself.
And did what you see confirm Teddy's report?
Unfortunately, yes. Weatherby was lying next to that coffin, or whatever it's called, apparently strangled. I went back to the bridge and put Tenney in charge of the investigation.
And what did he uncover?
Well, you'll have to ask him for the specifics, because I can scarcely recall the details.
All right. So Ramsey said talk to Tenney. Okay. This is better acting and better set design than Gabriel Knight. Sierra. It is. It really is. Let's see, Tenney.
Let me tell you, a murder, even by a 4,000-year-old mummy, was only one odd thing in a string of bad luck on this voyage.
What sort of bad luck?
It all started with the crew, really. Seamen are a rather superstitious lot to begin with, and the idea carrying about a 4,000-year-old mummy had them shivering in their timbers. We almost faced a bloody mutiny. Then there were the passengers, a strange lot. I can tell you that reporter fellow, Travis, did us no service at all with his mystic mumbo-jumbo.
Travis.
He and Professor Winterbank had a regular war of words going on about whatever powers this mummy was supposed to have.
Oh, he was the victim.
And there was the two Arabs.
Arabs? Interesting. Do you recall their names?
I should hope I do. One was called Farmy. He always carried around this curious little box. No clue what was in it, but Farmy never let it out of his sight. The other one's name was Al Sard, and he spent most of his time lurking about watching Farmy. My guess is he wanted that box.
Sounds like you had your hands full.
I haven't even told you about the fight yet between Mr. Weatherby and Mr. Arubaru.
Over what?
Weatherby's wife, I'd say, though they were a tight-lipped lot about it.
I see. Tell me, Lieutenant, we understand that you were the first person to discover the body.
Yes, sir, I was. Captain Ramsey sent me down to inspect the hold. And I went immediately over to them Egyptian crates. Professor Winterbank was particularly anxious about him, you know.
Could you describe the scene as you remember it?
I'll never forget it. I just made my way to the back of the hold, and I noticed at the top of them crates, the one what carried the mummy's coffin was raised up kind of funny like. The coffin lid was laid off to one side, and there was Mr. Weatherby, all sprawled on the floor next to a bowl of ashes. He'd been strangled by a length of the mummy's sheeting. It was bloody gruesome, I tell you. Poor bloke's eyes popped out like a couple of sausages on a hot iron skillet.
Quite a vivid picture, don't you agree, Holmes?
Better sound,
Quite.
too.
And you reported this to Captain Ramsay straight away?
Absolutely. In fact, the captain put me in charge of the entire investigation.
And what did you discover? Did anybody have any contact with Weatherby on the night of the murder?
Not that I know of. I could account for all the crew. And the passengers were in their cabins as far as anyone knew or would say. Nobody saw anything, heard anything, or knew anything. Besides, Weatherby was seasick from the beginning. He stayed pretty much in his cabin all the time. Maybe that's why the lovely young Mrs. Weatherby was gallivanting about.
With Uruburu?
Yes, indeed.
And what of the bowl? Where is it now?
Bowl?
With the ashes?
Oh, yes. You know, now that you mention it, I don't recall ever seeing it again.
This is well done. So far, sound design is excellent. The drawings for flashbacks is great. The Holmes actor I really do like, and the Watson actor is actually pretty good too. This is really done well. Okay. Ebenezer Turnbull. Isn't he dead? Okay, well, the name they gave me was Fami and Al something.
Well, Holmes, I checked in with Mr. Al-Sad's manservant and...
And you discovered that Mr. Al-Sad was not at home.
But however did you know that?
Elementary, my dear Watson. I noticed some crumpet crumbs from the corner bakery stuck to your lapel. You haven't been gone long enough to stop for tea and interview anyone at length.
Most observant,
That
sir.
ignorant slut, Watson. I don't even care about points. I really want to crack this mystery open. Alright. I think the Arabs are red herrings. Uburu and Weatherby are interesting. Let's go to Mrs. Weatherby first.
I'm very sorry to intrude on you in your moment of grief.
Oh, that's quite all right. You know, Andrew and I hadn't been married very long.
Long enough to know if he had any enemies?
Oh, Andrew was so unassuming. Everyone liked him.
Including Mr. Uruburu?
Ooh, burn! Fucking
I really
Holmes!
loved my husband.
I'm sure you did. Oh, English toffee. My favorite.
Would you like one?
Please.
Sorry, you'll have to open this yourself. I've never been any good with these things.
This box is a newfangled contraption. Alright, so Weatherby can't open a box. Alright. Let's go to Mr. Uruburu. Fucking always send the detectives. You get movies that way.
If this is an inconvenient time, perhaps I could come back, Mr. Uruburu.
Wouldn't hear of it. Just a bit of a hangover. I've weathered plenty worse than this.
I'm investigating the death of Andrew Weatherby. You were on the ship with him out of Cairo. Did you happen to make his acquaintance?
Weatherby, a most tedious fellow.
So tedious, one might want to do him in.
Don't be preposterous. In my condition, I couldn't have done anything of the sort.
What condition was that?
Consumption.
And I thought you were a great detective. The first night out, a few of us threw a bit of a bash that went on until we docked in London.
Did Mrs. Weatherby attend this particular bash?
She was the guest of honor, you might say.
Oh, what a whore. What a fucking whore. What a dirty fucking whore. Her husband's not even dead yet. She's fucking around being a whore. It's like, where did that come from? Let's go back to Weatherby. I'm gonna have to go to, I guess, Fami now.
Hello? Is anyone there? Mr. Fami, are you at home?
Apparently so, Watson. Look.
Oh, what ghastly business. Everyone will assume the mummy has struck again.
Hardly a plausible assumption. This poor fellow has a knife in his back and not a scrap of sheeting about his neck.
How very observant, Holmes.
Ring up Scotland Yard. This case is simple enough for them to solve.
You've solved it already.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Obviously, it was the butler.
Butler? What butler?
Exactly my point. A man as wealthy as Akram Fahmy would always have a manservant about him. After the foul deed, this one obviously beat a hasty retreat.
The butler did it. I like the little sting there. Oh, this is actually good. This guy is... He's getting in character with Holmes. The cinematography, I guess if you want to call it that, the lighting is actually decent as well. I just have a big smile on my face. I'm going to get a mint. I'll be right back. English Archaeological Society.
This seemed to be a dead end. No one had any information that could help us solve this case.
All right. All right. Might be time to consult the regulars.
It's quite amusing, all this hoopla over a mummy's curse, I must say. Not so amusing, of course, the murder of 3 Englishmen.
Have any of your reporters uncovered anything new?
Actually, I've been in Paris the past several weeks. Just returned to London on Tuesday. I've had no involvement with the writing of any of these articles. I believe they are all the work of Philip Travis. He's one of our young reporters. For a short time, he was the Egyptian correspondent.
Was he sacked?
No. He returned to London just a few days ago. I gather he was reassigned to cover the case from here because he had some familiarity with a murder in Egypt.
Do you know Travis?
No, never actually met the chap, although I hear he's a bit of an odd duck.
Thanks for your help, Henry.
Anytime. Let me know when you catch the mummy. That's one scoop I'd like to get.
So you've been reading my articles in the Times. I'm honored. What do you think of them?
Quite interesting. You've clearly been following the murders quite closely. Who do you suspect?
I believe it is the work of the ancient Egyptian god Pumatef and his goddess Neith.
Be serious.
I couldn't be more serious. You see, Mr. Holmes, although I am a journalist, I was actually trained as an Egyptologist. I know all about these mysteries. That's why my articles carry the force of truth.
And what is the truth, Mr. Travis?
The truth is that the Egyptians discovered the secret of life. What we call science is mere child's play compared to the knowledge they had. Look at this. Do you know what this is?
It appears to be a mummified animal of some sort. A monkey, perhaps?
Precisely.
Write a conversation piece.
I've been using it in some very important experiments which, if successful, will unlock the secret for bringing back the souls of the dead. I've been working on it, Mr. Holmes, using these tanner leaves. Watch.
This is good acting.
Uma lotus. Licantina. Burura.
It appears that the soul of this particular monkey has no intention of making a reappearance.
It's only a matter of time, I know it is. After all, these secrets have been buried for thousands of years. These things don't happen overnight. But it will happen someday. This is my mission.
I believe I'll leave you to your work, Mr. Travis.
Don't go yet. Let me show you more.
Thank you. Some other time, perhaps.
I remember there was a book with this that told me who the irregulars, the regulars were. This is, I like this Holmes. I think I might like this Holmes the most.
Sorry, fellows. I don't mean to be brusque, but I am too occupied at the moment to concern myself with these so-called mummy murders. Perhaps if the mummy's solicitor were to contact me, then perhaps I would consider defending him.
Now, the thing what does strike me as odd is the passenger list of the Eastern Empress. Now, I'm not saying it has anything to do with the mummy murders, mind you, but it was a bit out of the ordinary.
What was Hogg?
Akram Palmi, for starters. He's a well-known importer, he is. For a considerable price by all accounts, he can acquire whatever one's heart desires, be it jewels, art objects, or even wild animals, if that's what you fancy. I'd say he was on board that ship to transport something very valuable.
The presence of one high-powered importer on a London-bound vessel is hardly reason for suspicion.
Right-o. But Abdullah al-Saud was also on board.
Oh, yes. The well-known agent for the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire.
You never miss a trick, do you, Holmes? Well, whatever it was what Palmi was carrying, I'd say it was something those Turks wanted to get their hands on.
But how does that connect to the murder of the mummy?
Well, well, if it isn't Mr. Sherlock Holmes, London's most overly praised amateur sleuth, needing the help of the Yard again.
Are you going to stand for that, Holmes?
Let's just see who proceeds to solve this case, Watson. Inspector Lestrade, my good man, I'm looking into the cause of James Windibank's death.
I should have known. That murder has brought out every crank in the city. I think the professional police can wrap this one up.
All the same, could you tell us what you've discovered to date?
One dead archaeologist, no suspect, no motive.
And what of Andrew Weatherby's death? Have you looked into that?
I have talked to Captain Ramsey, but we have no leads.
I think he lost his accent.
Look, I'm not even sure that Weatherby's murder falls into our jurisdiction. And if it doesn't, you're not going to find me worrying about it. As it is, I have enough murders to take care of.
Here it is, Holmes. Egyptian mummies are embalmed bodies preserved to facilitate their resurrection. Many mummies have been found, and they are almost always the bodies of pharaohs. The pharaohs believed that one day their bodies would be brought back to life. See History of Egyptian Mummies by Pettigrew, London, 1834.
Very good, Watson.
Oh, do I need that?
Beg your pardon, but could I have a word with you, Sir Jasper?
Dr. Watson, of course. Are you investigating the death of Samuel Sneed? I just finished with him.
No, we're interested in James Windibank.
Ah, the mummy's latest victim, of course. Who hired Holmes for this one? King Tut?
Oh, that's a jolly good one. Actually, we don't have a client on this one.
Just for fun, eh?
Freelance.
Well, about the only thing I can tell you is that that mummy has very powerful hands.
What do you mean?
The trachea was crushed along with one of the vertebrae of the neck. Death was instantaneous. Snap.
But the paper's reports say that there were mummy wrappings found round the neck.
Just window dressing. Without question, it was bare hands. The bruises and the way that the vertebrae was crushed leave no doubt about that.
Thank you very much for your time, Sir Jasper. We're very much appreciative.
Not at all, Watson. You will let me know when you've convicted the mummy.
Beg your pardon?
Well, so I can perform an autopsy on him. Would be most fascinating, don't you think?
So we're ruling out Mrs. Weatherby because she can't open up a box. Oh, the acting is actually good for an FMV. I'm so happy. Like I said, detectives are everywhere.
Pettigrew wrote this book over 50 years ago, and there's still nothing better on the subject. Fascinating. Just fascinating. And what can I do for you today, Whitson?
It's Watson, sir.
Watson, yes, of course.
We're interested in what you may have learned about this mummy case.
Oh, so these days it's mummies you're chasing down with that fella Holmes.
It's Holmes, sir.
This is what I said now, isn't it, Whitson?
Yes, I believe you did, sir.
Let me show you what I found so far. This is the bit of linen that was found round the neck of James Windibank. I examined it thoroughly, and it is quite old, perhaps thousands of years. However, it is not the murder weapon.
Are you certain of that?
Aye. The linen is quite old, but it's not at all strong enough to strangle a grown man.
Very interesting, sir.
I also found something quite fascinating. Take a look through this glass. Do you see those short hairs on the fabric?
They look precisely like hairs.
Of course they look like hairs. But what kind of hairs? They're not human hairs. They're dog hairs. Now, look at this. This piece of linen was found round the neck of the victim on board the ship. Well, his name was Leatherby or something. It is also quite old, and on it I found more hairs.
More dog hairs?
No, my dear man, monkey hairs.
Animals.
I've not yet been able to identify the precise species, but it's just extraordinary, isn't it?
Quite. But what do you think it all means?
Well, I'm not the sort who likes to jump to conclusions, Whitson. But I can assure you that neither of these bandages were the murder weapons.
All right. I'm gonna go by Windibank's house. I gotta go see her now.
James was so thrilled when Dr. Turnbull invited him to join the expedition. He felt he had spent his entire life reading books about archaeology, and now was finally getting an opportunity to go out into the field.
Tell me, Mrs. Windibank, when your husband returned, did he discuss the deaths of his colleagues?
Of course. James was extremely upset. I know he did not believe a curse to be responsible. My husband was a man of science.
Dr. Turnbull, he was a strange one, he was. Hardly ever at home, always traipsing about a Lord knows where.
May I take a look at his things?
Oh, suit yourself. All he had is a big pile of books about Egyptian mummies and a few maps. He was a son of an earl, he was. Though you hardly tell from looking at him, poor fellow. Do you really think this mummy thing's what's done him in? Creepy, I says.
Animals, huh? No, don't want to go to the zoo.
It appears.
I was gonna go to the regulars. Nasty business, I say.
Well, Holmes, it appears we're out of luck. The clerk told me that O'Brien is off on...
Ah, the party. Let's see.
I know only a very little about two of the unfortunate gentlemen. I do recall that Turnbull was quite an eccentric chap. I don't believe he ever married, nor did he take his rightful place in London society.
And what of Windybank?
A quiet academic sort, as far as I can tell. Married to a woman called Hildegard. There was one spot of controversy that I can recall. It seems a few years back he had a run-in with the Anti-Vivisectionist League.
No, but of course.
It seems that during a lecture on the advancement of science, he spoke of the autopsy of his own pet, a recently deceased Yorkshire Terrier. Well, I can tell you the Times received a great deal of letters to the editor condemning him on that one. Even one from a Louise Fenwick, who threatened to vivisect him.
Oh, dear. Well, then I surmise it's Weatherby you know nothing about.
Well, now that you mention it, I believe he was assisting Professor Windybank in that lecture series.
So, now it's starting to become clear that there was some kind of anti-vivisectionist league afoot. Sorry, Gov. No one's at home. Anti-vivisection league. Look, John Barrymore's there. That's pretty funny. Fenwick.
I'm sorry, but I don't know anything about the death of old... whatever his name was.
Andrew Weatherby.
Fact is, I only saw the gentleman once, just as we were boarding. And I'll tell you, I resented the first officer's questioning us on the matter, and I resent yours.
The whole voyage was a disaster from beginning to end. Our accommodations were positively abysmal. They wouldn't even let us bring Dickie into our cabin.
Dickie? Her high-strung, distasteful little mutt.
How can you say that, Merrill? You know Dickie is a blue-blooded Yorkshire Terrier. Mumsy will be with you in just a moment, Dickiekins. He's a bit under the weather, you know. That's why we were only able to stay in Egypt for 2 weeks. Dickie was so disappointed. He so wanted to see the Sphinx.
Mr. Holmes is not interested in your incessant whining, Louise.
Oh, now I whine, do I? There was a time you thought I had a lovely speaking voice. It's true, Mr. Holmes. He once adored me.
No doubt. Oh, for the love of God, Louise, spare us your blubbering.
That's pretty sweet. Oh, man, this is such a good game.
I know only a very little of...
Oh, I went there already.
There was a couple of blokes in here just a fortnight ago what mentioned the Eastern Empress. Never seen 'em before, haven't seen 'em since. One was a swarthy fellow, Arab unless I miss my guess. The other was an old English gent. I overheard 'em say something about a bird and later caught the name of the ship. I hope that helps you. Care for a drink, yeah?
Mr. Turnbull apparently left what little he had to the Egyptology department at London University. And Windbank left everything to his wife Hildegard.
What about Weatherby?
Ditto. Everything was left to his wife Clarissa, although being such a young chap, it hardly seems that he had much to leave at all.
I think that's kind of a dead end. Where's the notebook? Alright, let's think here. Bird. Is there a bird in here? No. John Barrymore, let's go visit him. Bird. Bird might also mean woman, right? Who's the guy at the hall?
Here it is.
That's not it.
Such a tragedy. Fine men all, and such outstanding scholars. I still can't quite get over the shock of it.
We understand.
Professor, we're looking for background information on these three men so that we can understand how their murders might tie together.
Amen, Holmes. Get
well,
to
let
it.
me begin with Dr. Turnbull. Ebenezer Turnbull was responsible for organizing the Carteret expedition. Quite a remarkable man, really. This was the first time he teamed up with James Windibank. Professor Windibank was one of our most popular lecturers. In fact, several of his former students were also eager to accompany him. I recall him saying that he was having difficulty choosing. Weatherby turned out to be the lucky one. Though it seems far from it now, doesn't it? I suppose Smith and Travis turned out to be the lucky ones after all.
Smith and Travis?
Peter Smith accepted the invitation to join another expedition. As for Philip Travis, he was quite keen on accompanying Professor Windibank. In fact, he became exceedingly upset when Andrew Weatherby, a postgraduate student in the department, was chosen instead. Took it rather personally, I should say.
We just visited Travis. Let's try Peter Smith.
Sorry I can't help you, Ducky, but Mr. Smith has been out of the country since the middle of March. He's a good-looking bloke, except for the dirt under his fingernails.
So you've been reading my articles in the Times. I'm honored. What do you think of them?
Quite interesting. You've clearly been following the murders quite closely. Who do you suspect?
Let's see the shipping register.
This seemed to be a dead...
I forgot the name of the shipping company.
Here is a passenger list you requested, sir.
Awesome. That's what I needed in the first place. And it went and died in 2 seconds.
Here is a passenger list you requested, sir.
Travis was on there too?
Here is a passenger list you requested, sir. Here is a passenger list you requested, sir.
I don't think I visited Arumbu yet.
If this is an inconvenient time, perhaps I could come back, Mr. Uruburu.
I wouldn't hear of it.
Okay, it's gotta be one of them.
I'm very sorry to intrude on you in your moment of grief.
Oh, that's quite all right. You know, Andrew and I hadn't been married very long.
Long enough to know if he had any enemies?
Oh, Andrew was so unassuming. Everyone liked him.
Including Mr. Uruburu?
I really loved my husband.
I'm sure you did. Oh, English toffee. My favorite.
Would you like one?
Please.
Sorry, you'll have to open this yourself. I've never been any good with these things.
That's why Holmes asked. Holmes is fucking smart. Alright. Alright, alright, alright. Let's think. Let's think about this out loud. monkey and dog hairs. I know prostitutes owned monkeys at this time. An article from the newspaper 17 August 1888 mentions an excavation and names 3 men. Note the location of the lecture. Oh, this game is so sexy right now. At the London University College on Wednesday afternoon, before an appreciative audience, Dr. Ebenezer Turnbull delivered a lecture which dealt with the history of excavations and the method by which they may most profitably be conducted. Dr. Turnbull and the archaeologists James Windibank and Andrew Weatherby, they're all dead, are embarking on a week and new Egyptian expedition excavating Khatput's tomb near Karnak and Luxor. Saturday's lecture was illustrated by photographs thrown on the screen by electric light, which showed vividly and distinctly not only work done at various stages, but the modus operandi, the conditions under which the work, that's pretty funny, of this character must be carried on, and the instruments necessary for the purpose, and enabled those present to realize that in classical study as the sciences, there is ample field of experiment and discovery open to the individual. Dr. Turnbull prefaced his lecture by an explanation that these real objects of excavations in these days, whatever might have given the first stimulus to such efforts, the primary motive was certainly not to find and keep treasure, any more than it was the aim of an astronomer to possess a star. The modern archaeologist was a little to be confounded with the treasure seeker, as mineralogists are with the gold miner. His aim must be to restore life to the monuments of bygone times, to bring vividly before us various phases of ancient societies, whether civilized or uncivilized. I went to London University already.
Such a tragedy. Fine men or...
I went there. I had to blow my nose, and I didn't want to do that on stream. Spare you that. Where would I go next? I just have a feeling that the monkey is playing a very strong role in this. Who else but Quagmire? Can't think of. Yeah, I'm just clicking around now. Like I can't put the image together in my head. And oh my god, my points are high. April 12th, 1889 mentions 2 additional murders. One is aboard a ship and the other at a British museum. Wait, I don't even know if I got the right one. I forgot! Okay, the British Museum. And London University. The Jardine ship. I spoke to Ramsey and Tetherville already. I'm gonna try Merton. Bulldog. Let me write these down. Let's go to Oxford. Let's go to the museum. Let's go to Johnny Bulldog. J.A. Merton. Okay, we got some leads. Okay.
Windibank's body was found in the mummy's case.
Inside it?
Precisely. One of the guards, Henry Witherspoon, discovered it when making his rounds. He noticed that the lid was askew and a hand was sticking out of it. By the look on his face when he came to summons me, he must have thought that the mummy was attempting to leave its resting place. Some of the guards have been a bit on edge, you know, since the stories about Dr. Turnbull's death.
What happened when you arrived at the scene?
Witherspoon assisted me in removing the lid. And there was the body of James Windibank. Around his neck was a bandage of linen.
And the mummy was missing?
No, it was in there too. Underneath poor Windibank, completely undisturbed, not a length of its sheeting unraveled.
Who had access to the exhibit room?
Well, the room was officially closed yesterday while we set up the exhibit, but the museum was open and we took no extraordinary precautions to keep people out.
Can you think of anyone who might have wanted to kill Windibank?
None at all. I actually didn't know him very well. He did work for the museum, you see.
Was it me?
He was with the London University. The university and the museum were joint sponsors of the Ketterbeck expedition.
Mr. Johnson, can you think of anything whatsoever that might shed some light on this affair?
No. I'm very sorry. I can't think of a thing. I only hope that all this publicity doesn't keep people away from the exhibit.
He's lying. Holmes. Watson, hold him! What's a mendicant? Oh, my knuckles are sore! Everybody play answering the door, governor! Alright.
Sorry, Holmes. No information here.
Well, let's not dawdle, Watson. There's work to be done.
That's what I say to my wife. Merton.
They had absolutely no information pertaining to this case.
I thought not what.
Mummy, Stella. That's so funny. Some of them you're gonna, it's just funny. Witherspoon was the guard who found it. I remember one of these people wasn't fucking listed. Henry Witherspoon. I'm like, why wouldn't he be listed? He's important. Holmes's files. I don't even know if I get those. Like, there's nothing to click. Unless I click them. So let's try Turnbull. Oh, that's how you get the files. Okay. Windibank.
James was so thrilled when Dr. Turnbull invited him to join the expedition. He felt he had spent his entire life reading books about
Weatherby. Oh, there it is.
Here is a passenger list you requested, sir.
Let me just look at that again.
Here is a passenger list you requested, sir.
I think I'm ready to do the case.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's Court now stands in order. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer?
Let me get out my, thing.
Terribly sorry, gentlemen, that is not at all correct.
Hey. I'm at a loss. I am at a complete. This is a good loss, though. This is like totally opposite of Sierra. This one's all on me. I'm missing something. What was Philip Travis doing there if he didn't... I'll go back to the judge.
Here. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
He's gotta be the only one.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer? And what makes you so certain? What was Travis' motive for killing Turnbull?
Yes. No?
Positively incorrect. I'm afraid you haven't done a good enough job of putting your brains to the task.
Alright, let's
Mr.
get this
Holmes,
case cracked.
I understand
fucking
you've been
crazy
looking...
cracked.
And what makes you so certain? What was Travis' motive for killing Turnbull?
No, what would it be? Oh, this is gonna be such a bad trial.
Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking... And what makes you so certain? What was Travis' motive for killing Turnbull? And what of Andrew Weatherby? Who murdered him?
There's more than one murder? Oh, this is not good. I tried the keys like 4 times. Oh my god, that's not good. These are kind of random things. Well, let's just do it. Okay. Oh, okay, so it's all Travis. I thought they were asking for another person. I thought, like, they realized, like, there's another murderer. I thought that would be good enough.
Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking... And what makes you so... And what of Andrew Weatherby? Who murdered him?
Travis.
So, you say Travis killed Turnbull and Weatherby?
Yes, I believe he did, my lord.
But what was his motive to kill Weatherby, Mr. Holmes?
Fuck. That's it.
Ah, revenge. The oldest motive in the book. This Travis seems to be quite a busy fellow. What made him kill James Windibank? Well, you've done an admirable job in resolving this mystery. I'd say you're on a par with just about any other armchair detective out there. I would suggest, however, that you rethink this case again, thereby improving your sleuthing skills.
Oh yes, I did try the case like 5 times or 6 times. But one, honestly, was because...
My word, dear Holmes. Perhaps we are in the wrong business altogether. I think I will ring up the university immediately and see if we might enroll in a detective course.
I love his face! Look at him! He's just like... Oh, that was fun.
Well, Watson, I believe this case is solved. And for your information, it was not the mummy.
Come, Holmes. I never thought for a moment it was the mummy.
Of course not, Watson. However, the murderer and the mummy did have one thing in common.
What's that?
They both were the only ones present at the time of the murders, except, of course, the victims.
You state the obvious, Holmes.
Ah, but it is seeing the obvious that is important. First, I saw no reason to assume that we were dealing with more than one murderer. Secondly, the locations of the murders limited the number of suspects.
Limited them? The first murder was in Egypt, the second on ship in the middle of the sea, and the third in London. You call the entire populations of London and Egypt a limited number of suspects?
No, Watson. We had to find someone who was in Egypt for the first murder, on the ship for the second, and in London for the third.
Oh, but of course.
According to the newspapers, the Eastern Empress was in Bombay at the time of Ebenezer Turnbull's murder, so that eliminated the ship's crew as suspects. Thus, I needed the list of passengers who boarded the ship at Cairo. It was our visit to Jardine, Mason and Company that provided our first critical clue. From it, I learned that Philip Travis was a passenger. I then learned that Travis was the chap who reported on the first murder. He became one suspect, but I had no motive. Clarissa Weatherby, who was also at the scene of the murder in Cairo, was another possible suspect, since she appears to have had a bit of a dalliance with Mr. Uruburu there on the high seas. So I had found her motive for the murder of Weatherby, but not a motive for the murder of the others.
Then whom did you eliminate?
Mrs. Weatherby. Her hands were not strong enough even to open a jar of English toffee, let alone strangle a grown man.
And what of Travis's motive?
It seems that Travis was a student in the Egyptology department at London University and had studied under James Windibank.
He wanted very badly to be chosen as a member of the expedition, but Winterberg turned him down. Instead, Weatherby was chosen and Travis was furious. So there you have the motive for 2 of the murders.
And what of his motive for the murder of Turnbull?
Evidently, Travis had written a vicious article questioning Dr. Turnbull's credentials to lead the expedition. Turnbull's response was quite harsh. Probably powerful enough to drive an odd duck like Travis to murder.
Very impressive, Holmes.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
Well done. Well played. Well played. Well fucking played. Oi, we talked to Mr. Holmes about this mummy business. And as far as clue points go, is how you did, Governor. Ivy. Look, I didn't say it was good as a game, but it was a fun game to play.
What rubbish!
Okay, so this is where I will leave you. Thank you for watching. I'm the Faustian Man. Hit that subscribe button to follow, etc., etc. Follow me on social media, also thefaustianman.com. Thank you for watching. This is a lot of fun to play this game. It really held up well, and FMV was done pretty well by Sega. This game came free with the CD thing, I believe, and this is better than Gabriel Knight 2, which had a lot more money behind it. Because they got too big. They wanted to do an opera and also the garbage. And they didn't give a shit about set design or character or lighting or even audio or actors. You know. This game shows you it could be done very well. Well, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, you guys. Maybe I'll play another one. These are just enjoyable to play. Alright. I'll be back maybe tonight or maybe tomorrow. Thank you. Bye. Rock on!